Texas Tales.
Hello friends, I'm Eric Brittingham, otherwise known as Mr. B from Wildlife on the Move, and welcome to Let's Go Wild. And today, it's all about Texas Tales. And boy, do we have a tale to tell you here. Yes, he's got a tail way back here. And that tail we'll talk about, he actually can use that tail to help defend himself. But before we get to that, let me tell you who this is. This is Alamo. He's actually known as a western rat snake. Now, I've had to get used to that new name. I grew up knowing this as a Texas rat snake, and that's why we're talking Texas Tales. This particular snake can be found in Texas and other parts of the country. We have rat snakes, but this guy gets mistaken for rattlesnakes and copperheads all the time. And it has a lot to do with their disposition, sometimes to some people, their coloration pattern, and that tail I was talking about back here. So let's go over that information with you little by little. Now you can see him showing off that mouth. Well, he did not like that globe right there, and that mouth is a first defense mechanism for him. He actually will open that mouth and hiss really loud. There he goes again. Yes, I'm giving him a nice target there, and he's showing off those teeth of his, and he actually can bite. As you can tell, he's biting that glove, since that's why I'm wearing that. So they use their mouth and their teeth to defend themselves and get animals to go away. So he has about 60 to 80 teeth. They're all angled backwards like fish hooks, very sharp. But don't worry, there's no fangs there. He is not venomous. He is a non-venomous rat snake, and that's what they love to eat. They love to eat rats and mice, but they also are really good about eating birds and bird eggs. Now, some people call these chicken snakes because they will go after chicken eggs as well. But they're not trying to be a nuisance. That's just what they're designed to do. They're very helpful in nature to keep the rodent population controlled, but also back to those birds, they actually can keep our bird population healthy and strong because they usually go after the weak birds that they find, and they can actually smell the difference between what is a healthy animal and what's a non-healthy animal. And how can he do that? Well, you noticed him sticking out that red tongue in and out. That is actually how they smell. They do smell with their tongue. They have a forked tongue. It's actually able to pick up particles out of the air on both sides. And when they bring that into their mouth, there's a pad on the bottom jaw that they push up to the top of their mouth. And the roof of their mouth has a little organ up there. We've talked about it in other episodes called Jacobson's organ. I'm going to kind of turn him around here. So he's able to figure out what's going on around him by getting the scent particles out of the air and using that Jacobson organ to his advantage to figure things out. Yes, they do have eyes. Now, these guys, since they're non-venomous, they have circular round pupils. Now, of course, I wouldn't recommend getting that close to a snake to figure that out. A lot of people will use that as a rule, and I don't really make that the best rule of thumb to see what their eye shape is, but he does have round pupils, vertical pupils here in the United States. For our rattlesnake, copperhead, and water moccasin would be a venomous snake, but you also have the coral snake that has round pupils. So that's not always the best way to tell if it's venomous or not. A lot of people will say, well, what about triangular head? Well, this guy, he can make a very triangular head when he gets scared or frightened, but he's non-venomous. So that's not the best way to tell either. I usually tell people to really learn about them by reading books. So go wild for reading once again, and check out their coloration patterns and their characteristics, and learn about them that way. This guy has kind of this gray and a little bit of yellow, a little bit of beige, a little bit of black, and in between his scales on camera, you can even see that orange. So the western rat snake has orange between their scales, and that's a telltale sign that it's a rat snake. Now, the other reason this guy gets called a venomous snake is back to that tail. He can actually take that tail and he'll wiggle it in leaves really, really fast, and it will sound like a rattlesnake. And so that scares away their enemies, but it also gets them into a lot of trouble. Now, this particular snake is very beneficial to us, so we do want to keep them around. They eat lots of rats and mice, like I said. They can grow to be 7 feet long, one of our longest non-venomous snakes here in the area of Texas, and very beneficial to nature because it's not just the things they eat. You have to remember, these animals also provide food for other animals, so they can be preyed upon. So it's not just about them keeping things in control. They actually keep the balance and keep everything connected for other animals to eat something very cool as well. Now, another thing, you can't smell it because we don't have smell-o-vision, but this animal, when it gets scared or frightened, it actually can make a musk, and I'm smelling a little bit of that right now. So when they get scared or frightened, they actually can musk, and that's also another thing that will get animals to leave them alone. Very similar to skunks. Although skunks kind of spray, these guys just kind of emit a musk from their vent towards the end of their tail. Well, that is a fascinating Texas tail for sure, and an animal that can be definitely found here in Texas. The western rat snake sometimes gets mistaken for the rattlesnake and copperhead. And you know, when we talk Texas, everybody wants to say we've got rattlesnakes all over the place, and that's not necessarily true. They're around, and they're important just as much as the western rat snake. So thanks for joining us on this segment. If you would, stay tuned. We've got some messages from our wild supporters, and then right after that, we've got a wild good time with our special guest. So stick around. We'll see you soon.
Let's Go Wild is brought to you by On Air Media, Happy Hawk Property Group, Mr. Longarm.
Welcome back to Let's Go Wild, and now it's time for our Wild Side Chat, and I am so excited. You're in for a special treat. We have a guest back. We actually are welcoming Window the Wild, and we have Lindsay McNaney and her husband Simon today. So welcome, guys. Thank you for coming.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, we're glad to have you. So tell us who you brought, and then we'll get started with telling our audience again what they can do to help out Window the Wild and learn more about what you guys do.
So I have Hermes. Hermes is our great horned owl. He's about 8 years old.
Awesome.
And this guy's name is Norbert. He's a red-tailed hawk. He's about 5 years old. We got him from Wichita Falls.
Awesome. So, and our theme today is Texas tails. So we definitely have two birds that are tails of Texas for sure. Absolutely. They have Texas tails. Very common around here, these two birds, but they both have a different a role to play, which we'll get to. But before we do that, just remind our audience then, tell us more about Window of the Wild. What is your mission, and what do you do to help the public, and what the public can do to come see you, or how they do that?
Yeah, I mean, so our mission is to promote wildlife education through all of our educational and entertaining programs. So awesome. We do flight programs out at different places. We do small school classroom programs, and we do a really fun program called Trainer for a Day.
And that's what I wanted to get to for sure. So where all do you travel, Simon? How far can you guys go?
We travel all over Dallas-Fort Worth. We've gone as far as the far side of Fort Worth. We do stuff all over Plano and McKinney, and so we pretty much will go anywhere.
Cool. Well, let's get to that Trainer for a Day program, because that sounds really awesome and fantastic. And I know we'll have maybe some video snippets of that, but tell us a little bit about Trainer for a Day.
So it's a super fun experience. I mean, we're bird nerds because of the fact we get to have these experiences with these amazing animals every day.
Absolutely.
So we want people to be able to come out and do that with us. So they get to come out and they train, they get to work with our owl. I mean, basically all of our birds, they get to be trainers with us. So we teach them how to fly a hawk to the glove. You get to fly Norbert too.
So what we call A to B flying, you get to learn that?
A to B flights.
Nice.
I mean, it's simple stuff. It's just things that we have to do every single day anyway, so it's fun to be able to incorporate people
absolutely
into it.
Once in a lifetime kind of experience, because we don't want people going out to the wild and doing that on their own.
Exactly.
You definitely need to be a trained professional, and permitting's involved with these birds because they're federally and nationally protected, correct?
Absolutely.
So you got to know what you're doing and be with the right people, and Window of the Wild, Simon and Lindsay are the people to do it. So definitely look into that Trainer for a Day. We'll tell you more about how to learn about that with their website and their Facebook page in a moment. But yeah, let's talk about that. That kind of leads us into, what do you all go through to get these guys comfortable on a glove and doing that with people that are unfamiliar with them and them with the people? What do you have to do using like their natural behaviors and things like that to get them conditioned?
So I think the biggest thing that we like to do is to be able to read body language so we know how these guys are feeling, if they're comfortable or not.
Oh, yeah.
One of the first things we have to do is training them to go on a scale, and then crate training. Those are kind of our number one behaviors. But watching behaviors, giving them treats and rewards for sitting still and calmly. But then working with new people, it's walking them through all those steps. Because to us, it's second nature. We do this all the time.
Right.
It takes a lot to read these body languages and to learn to hold them up as high as we can so that they can see 360 degrees around them and be confident.
Cool. Anything you want to add to that, Lindsay?
And it all depends on too just the animal's background. He was completely wild. We have a bald eagle that was in the wild for 5 years.
Wow.
So very afraid of people when we started working with her. Yeah. So just building that trust, getting them to understand. Absolutely. We call it, getting to understand the trainer game is understanding like, hey, we're bringing you treats and rewards, things
it's
that
all
you
a good
want.
thing.
Yeah,
right.
absolutely. We're positive, and we really strive to never make our birds do anything that they don't want to do. They always have a choice.
Cool. All right, so back to roles. So we know the red-tailed hawk is a diurnal species, comes out at daytime, whereas the owl, obviously nocturnal, nighttime hunter. A bird of silent flight. These guys make a lot of noise, even though that Hermes is making vocalizations here right now, which is great. But yeah, let's talk about a little bit about where they came from. You mentioned Wichita Falls for the red-tailed hawk. You know, just how they come to your care. What is the steps you take to kind of keep them comfortable, and why they can't go back to the wild?
Yeah, absolutely. So Norbert came to us from Wichita Falls, from a rehab center. He had a broken wing, and they were actually able to fix that and let him go. They released him off property. They drove him away. But he came back about 2 days later to that enclosure and sat up on top, and then went right inside when he was ready, when they opened that door.
So he was conditioned to
He
being
was
around
conditioned.
people.
He got used to it. Ooh, okay.
There you go. It's all good.
And so
you see that
he sees
beautiful
some shadows.
space. Yep.
You're okay, bud.
That's okay. Yeah. Again, comfortability.
And so he's a nervous bird sometimes. And so we try to watch all of these behaviors. He sees some shadows and stuff behind him.
Yeah.
But it just takes time. And so it took a lot of time working with him, probably a year and a half before he was comfortable with people around him.
Yeah.
So he's a good bird, though. These guys are like rabbit and rats and mice eaters, and they're great to have around.
Important to
Super
nature
important.
and the ecosystem. Now let's go to the bird of silent flight and nighttime hunting. Where did Hermes come from, and what have you been doing to kind of get him conditioned?
So Hermes, he actually came to us when he was about a month old. So he was actually brought in. Some people found him at like 2 days old on the ground, couldn't find any parents. So they actually did the right thing. They took him to their local vet clinic.
Yeah.
But what happened is that vet clinic illegally kept him.
Oh,
So they had him for the first month of his life until he got taken away from them by the game warden.
Okay.
So he's very imprinted. So he's really comfortable with people and just not conditioned to be out in the wild.
Right. So
he
that's
looks to
why
people.
these birds are now an educational ambassador for Window to the Wild, and gives you an opportunity to learn more about them, because sometimes they're misunderstood and people think, oh, this is an excellent pet. Not an excellent pet. Federally protected, but also very sharp talons on both of these guys, very sharp beaks. So they're designed to hunt and kill their prey. Well, let's talk about a few other things. You know, Lindsay was here a while back, so you can check out that episode that we had of African animals, but I gotta ask Simon this question. I hope he's ready for it, although he's got some work to do here as we're watching this behavior. So Simon, tell us, as a child, what sparked your interest in working with wildlife and animals, and kind of tell me more about your journey.
Yeah, so I've loved animals my whole life, but Steve Irwin was my idol.
Yeah.
And so I watched a lot of Crocodile Hunter growing
me
up.
too.
And so I recorded every single one on VHS tapes. They're probably still at my parents' house.
You're dating both of us
And
there,
so,
Simon.
Yeah, and so I loved it. And so from the age of 13 on, I volunteered at the Richardson Animal Shelter. That was my only way of getting to work with animals. Being so young, can't really go to the zoo at that age.
Absolutely.
So I learned there. I worked with a lot of dogs and cats, and then some birds and some snakes, and got my foot in there. Went to A&M, did wildlife biology.
Awesome.
And then from there on, I went to the zoo. The Dallas Zoo is where I worked.
And I worked at the Dallas Zoo as well for a time.
And it was a great place. I worked with okapi and zebra and gazelle and
very
a lot of
cool
hoof stock, and I loved it.
And very, very exotic animals right there.
Yeah.
Those are awesome. Well, thanks for telling us that. And that kind of segues me into both of you kind of telling us, you know, if there's a kid out there or even an adult, you know, what would your advice be to them to get into this kind of field, or even just explore their interest working with animals?
Yeah.
And
I think for most youngsters, it's great to find those places that you can volunteer. And even if it's just going and walking dogs with your parents at an animal shelter, that's a great way to learn. It's hands-on experience with animals, learning everyone's different behaviors. But also, if you're interested in falconry, doing the research, finding all the papers that you can online to find to learn as much as you can, because a lot of people want to get into it. And it's a huge commitment. It's every single day working with these animals. So.
And Lindsay and I talked about it. It's not for the money last time. And it's definitely not that. It's a passion game. And Simon leads to a good point there. Is I always say, go wild for reading. The more you read, the less you fear, the more you know, and then you can educate yourself to get into this field. Do you have anything from last time to add to that of what you would tell kids?
You know, it really just work hard. I mean, you know, I just feel like that's one of our big things is we have such a strong work ethic and just understanding there's a lot of work to work with these animals, but it's so rewarding to be able to have a relationship with an animal that was wild, have them trust you. Like that to me, it's worth the hard work.
I
but
will
you have
say,
to be ready for work.
You have to be ready to clean a lot of poop.
And I was going there next because that's what I tell my audience. They love our shows, right? And they see the glamorous part of us having these animals on our hand and educating them, but they don't see the countless hours that go into feeding and cleaning and take care of them them and maintaining their enclosures. And there's so much. There's so many hats we all wear.
Absolutely.
And so you have to go into it knowing that it's not just doing the shows. You've definitely got to take care of these animals for the life of them, because they can't be released in a city park. You just don't want to do those kind of things. You're committed. Well, we're doing great here. So I'm going back to Simon, because Lindsay answered this, and she and I are birds of a feather. We both said we would like to be the peregrine falcon if we could be any animal at all. So Simon, your turn. If you could be any animal at all, whether it's a bird or not, who would you be and why?
I think one of my favorites that I've worked with that I would probably most like to be would be a gibbon.
A gibbon.
I worked with
right.
white-handed gibbons, and
Nice.
they were amazing at the zoo. Just very agile climbers in the trees, and I love rock climbing. Still climb trees to this day.
It's interesting how it really does tie to your personality, isn't it, with
absolutely.
animals? So that's a really great one. If you've never seen a gibbon, Dallas Zoo is a great place to see gibbons, and definitely recommend you checking those guys out and doing some more research about them. Well, let's see. What else could I ask you? We've already talked about where they've come from and how to be in the professional field. I know one thing that I want to know is just how can our viewers learn more about Window the Wild and become a wild child and make a difference for you guys? Because I know we're both nonprofit organizations, Wildlife on the Move and Window the Wild. So tell our viewers just how can they help you?
I mean, really just, I guess, paying attention to your local wildlife, really seeing the trees and all of the animals that are around you. That's like one of the biggest things, noticing the world around you, putting your phones down, but also too, just coming out, visiting our facility, see what we do.
Yeah.
I know the animal world is in a hard spot right now.
It
because,
is.
we don't want to see animals in captivity, but, we have to understand the real part of that is that these animals can't go back out in
That's
the
right.
wild. They wouldn't
There
be
are
able to survive.
situations that justify that.
Right.
Yes.
And a lot of animals, there's not habitat left for them to be out in the wild.
Yeah.
So, just learning why these animals are where they are and, doing your research on, where you're going to go and who you want to support. And that's all part of it, too.
Absolutely. It's really good. Anything, Simon?
I think
front?
one of the biggest things that I could say is keeping an eye on where you're putting rat poison, things like that. Rat poison is one of the biggest killers of birds of prey.
Yeah.
So 75% of birds of prey don't make it past their first year. And most of that's due to human intervention from rat poison or being hit by cars.
Yes. So there are some things that we can do, and we're going to tell you more about how you can help Window to the Wild in just a moment. But I've got to end on this one. All right, let's talk about crazy experiences, because before we started filming today, we talked about some crazy experiences we've had, whether it be bites or encounters or funny things. So I'll start with Simon, since you weren't here last time. Tell me about your funniest or craziest experience working with animals.
Man, at the zoo, I think some of my favorite things, the crazy experiences, would have been having to do catch-ups, grab-ups for veterinary procedures with certain animals. And we worked with some big hoof stock, some big horned animals, and having to hand grab those was always an exciting time and a challenging
You can't
time.
always condition them, right?
No,
like you can with birds
it's
of
a
prey
little
and
bit
other
different,
animals.
and we just, it's kind of a forceful thing to kind of get it over with as quick as possible, and it was always crazy. But then we had an experience with our Harris hawk once where he flew to my glove, sitting over a small crowd of children, and he lifted his tail up to poop.
Oh, no.
And I saw it going right into a kid's head, so I reached my hand out and I caught poop in midair.
That is impressive.
So that was one of my
I always tell my audience there's always one party pooper in every party.
Absolutely.
So be on the lookout for it, and that can happen. You just don't want the kids going,
Yeah, exactly.
That can be pretty dangerous.
So I say splash zone.
The splash zone is always there. Lindsay, I know you told us one last time, but do you have anything else that's different than your stage experience you had with the bird flew off?
Oh, I will say one of my most memorable, he actually proposed to be on stage at the State Fair of Texas.
Now that is, she's earning points now. That is great. Yeah, State Fair of Texas is an awesome place. That's where I met Lindsay, and they do a wonderful show over there for the State Fair of Texas, the bird show there. So that's a good one. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
Well, guys, I could spend hours upon hours talking with you guys and being around these birds of prey. They're a magnificent species, and we really thank you for all that you do to help wildlife and educate the public. So again, we want to tell you, please be a wild child, make a difference, and support Window to the Wild, and we'll have information about that coming up on how you can do it. Again, stay wild, everybody. We'll see you soon. Thanks for joining us today, and from all of us at Wildlife on the Move, let's go wild again sometime. But in the meantime, be a wild child for our animal ambassadors like Alamo here, and my special guest, and our world. If you go to bonfire.com/store/wild-wear, we'll have information for how you can do that and support our animal care fund. We'll see you soon.
Be a wild child and support Window to the Wild by visiting their website at windowtothewild.org and follow them on Facebook at Window to Wild. Donate to our animal care fund at mygivingcircle.org/charity/wildlife on the move. Check out our website and book our programming at www.wildlifeonthemove.com. Follow us on Facebook at Live Animal Shows. Follow us on Twitter at MrB_WOTM. Follow us on Instagram at eric.wildlifeonthemove. And check out our YouTube channel and subscribe to this very program at Let's Go Wild. Subscribe to Patreon for monthly animal adventure videos at patreon.com/animaladventures.